Alright, welcome back friends. So in this week's video I paint a much requested portrait study that includes some darker skin tones. And we're gonna find out how it's different from painting other skin colors. And along the way we're not only gonna learn something about oil painting, but hopefully also get a glimpse into the mind of an artist. One of the most asked questions I get is how to mix skin tones. And while I've talked about this subject a few times already, today I want to try to answer the question from a different angle. So let's dive right into it. Before doing anything else, I work on the darkest and most complex areas of the face, which in this case means that I start the painting by painting the eyes and the lips first. I also paint her neck area, including the cast shadow, very early in the process. And this allows me to do two things. On the one hand, I'm establishing the darkest skin tones by painting the cast shadow on her neck. But on the other hand, painting a less important area like the neck first allows me to get a feel for the colors. How light or dark most of them are going to be and which colors to mix to get the best results. Think of it a bit like having a rehearsal. After getting a feel for the colors and what the best approach for the painting is, I go back to paint the face. I put down the remaining shadows under her eyebrows and nose, and then I go on to carefully paint my way from one part of the face to the next, while constantly tweaking and adjusting colors and proportions. So, how is painting darker skin different from painting lighter skin? Well, it isn't. It's exactly the same. And the reason why this seems difficult to grasp or even counter to intuition is because how most people see the world. One of the secrets of not only painting skin tones, but painting anything for that matter, is shifting the way we see things. Because the thing is, most people are much better painters than they think they are. I can pretty much guarantee you that almost everyone can paint realistic skin tones or realistic water effects, provided they don't know what they're painting. How is that? Well, let me explain. One of the biggest things holding most people back when it comes to painting is the way they perceive things. The natural way of seeing and perceiving things is by interpreting all the sensory information we get. Meaning that we see a glowing yellow dot in the sky, for example, and we immediately interpret it with all the additional information at our disposal. Hot, star, sun, far away, etc, etc. And we do the same when we see water droplets. Our brain immediately goes water, wet, transparent, and so on. But the thing is, for the purpose of painting something, most of these additional information is not only irrelevant, but it also makes things much more complicated than they need to be. It influences us in a way that ultimately holds us back, and it keeps us from seeing things in their simplest and truest form, which is a collection of differently colored abstract shapes and forms. This is not only how most artists see the world, it's also the secret to painting anything. Realism, or the illusion of realism, fundamentally is an emergent property, meaning that once you stop interpreting what you see and purely focus on color and shapes, realism automatically comes along for the ride. And the same is true for skin tones. Most people are held back by the idea of a skin tone to begin with. Fundamentally, there are no skin tones, there's just color. And once you understand this concept, the idea of dark and light skin tones also starts to break down. And a great exercise to get a grasp of this concept is to paint something without knowing what it is. For example, print out a picture of some kind of surface or detail, or anything, it doesn't really matter. Cut out a small square in the middle of the picture and then repaint the part. This is one of the best ways to really train yourself to see the world differently. And this is also something that I'll be teaching at some of the workshops I'll be giving in the future, along with a whole bunch of other things. But more information on that in the upcoming weeks and months. So, where most people see hair, painters usually see just shapes and colors. Where most people see shiny metallic surfaces, painters see shapes and color. And where most people see skin tones, painters just see different shapes of color. And everything else is secondary. After having filled out the face, I go on to paint the hair. I will go back to rework the hair, but as you will see, it only takes a little detail in the right places to create a convincing illusion. And after I've established a foundation that I'm happy with, I let everything dry, before coming back to it the next day. At the beginning of the second painting session, I go back to where I started and I repaint some of the most important areas of the face. I adjust colors, soften transitions, and I also tweak the proportions. To To this day, this part of the process remains one of the hardest for me. It's very tempting to just rework everything, because instinctively, we feel like there's something wrong if we don't treat every part of a painting the same way. But that is just something we have to free ourselves from. Just reworking everything because it feels right usually ends up in creating a less dynamic and interesting painting. The key is to find the right balance between all the components. Loosely painted areas, transparent areas, and highly finished ones. And after having worked on the face and the hair to the point where I feel like I could already leave it as it is, it's time to introduce the background. I paint the background and I introduce some light abstractions to the painting to contrast and balance the realism. I always compare this part to having a pinch of salt in your cookie dough. It's not just a gimmick. It actually balances the sweetness and makes the taste much more complex. I know that this step really annoys some people out there. I constantly get angry messages telling me to stop ruining my paintings and how everything looks so great until I destroy my art, that I have some kind of self-destructive tendencies, or that people get anxious when they see me doing this, and I love it. I think it's great. There's nothing worse than a vanilla piece of art. Nothing against vanilla, I think vanilla ice cream is great, but art where people go, meh. I think that all art should in some way or another provoke at least some reaction from the viewer, and any emotional response is better than none. And as for the way I paint, some like it more and others less. One man's trash is another man's treasure. And after having painted the background, I go back for some final adjustments. I don't introduce any major changes at this stage, instead I focus on tweaking the things that I've already established. So, what color does skin have? Well, let me ask you this, what color does a banana have? If your answer is yellow, you're technically not wrong, but this might also be the reason why you're having difficulties painting skin. Because in the context of painting, my answer to this question would be, let me see it, and then I'll tell you which colors it looks to be made of. A banana might mostly reflect light with a certain wavelength, which we usually call yellow. But that information doesn't really matter that much when painting, because the color of most of the things we paint is influenced by the surroundings and by different lighting situations. If you paint a banana at night, guess which color you probably don't need? Exactly. Yellow. But the fact that we are biased in these ways makes it hard to judge these things. A banana is yellow, strawberries are red, skin has, well, skin color, and so on. These things are more often than not what we think we see, rather than what we actually see. And that is exactly the reason why it's so important to forget about these facts when you're painting. I mean, how can you see any other color than yellow when you know that what you're looking at is a banana? Well, it's actually easy. You just have to forget what you're looking at. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. Thank you all so much for watching. Please hit like, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and yeah, have a good one.